Hello, and welcome to the Indie Plus exhibition game TLDW version. We're here with...
Mark.
I'm Jen Martin.
And Rich.
And I'm Brendan Conway. We just finished a game of The Clay That Woke by Paul Czege, and now we're going to do a 5-minute condensed discussion. First, we'll talk about our favorite highlights of the game we just played. Then we'll talk about what you should know about the game, anything that you should be definitively aware of before diving in. And finally, why you should play, the one stunning reason that you should play this game. So, without further ado, highlights. Mark, what was your highlight from the game?
I think my highlight was watching Rich try to kind of engage the social mechanics as a Minotaur, and it was a good reminder of like how cool it is to play in a real setting where you're like, you are a thing. It was really neat.
Cool. Jen, what was your highlight?
My highlight was your Minotaur, Brendan, trying to not lie to people. Skirt that line. Super close. That was fun.
Rich, what was your highlight?
So 2 highlights just from a general RPG type thing. I really enjoyed how Paul ran vignettes. I thought it was cool, some of the cutting and jumping directly into a situation. But as a highlight for actual activity, I love how much he kept pushing back on Mark's Minotaur trying to defeat the woman without brutalizing her, and then just keep pushing, and Mark's eventual brutalizing.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was my highlight too. Is when Mark made the choice, made a decision, because there's it sort of stood out to me that seems to be one of the things that is trying to go on here, is like making you make a decision, making you choose to actually stand up and like fight for something or resist what you're being told to do. And so when Mark was struggling with that, and then he actually stood up and did it, that was like a really solid moment for me. All right, great. So let's talk about what people should know before they pick up the Clay That Woke, the one thing you would tell somebody before they were to buy it. I'm going to first preempt this by taking a really easy one so that nobody has the simple and cheap option. One of the simplest things that you should know about Clay That Woke is that it is going to use tokens. And you are going to need some sort of bowl and some sort of set of tokens to actually do this. It might be possible to create a way to do this online. It was very fortunate we were playing with Paul and he had the tokens that he could just do it for us. But I think that will be a limiting factor to some extent in terms of the just, what's the word? Usability? No, that's not quite it. Accessibility of the game. That's it. The other thing that I would call out that you really should know, though, before you get the game is it absolutely is very strongly defined within its own setting, and that's really, really cool. I really like the setting, but it's also something that you need to be aware of, that it's not as much of a, like, we have total definition over the setting ourselves. We totally control it ourselves. Rich, what would you tell somebody?
Similar to the token, but it's more of a almost an oracle for results. So when conflicts happen, right, you're going to draw these things, and then you look through a chart, and there's some negotiation back and forth. So this isn't really like a, "Brow, did I hit, did I not hit?" Kind of thing. So be advised, it takes a little bit of time, which is great if that's something you like. But if you're expecting just like real quick resolution, like pop, 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 keep going, that's not what this is about. The news is it's not really micro on those conflicts. It's much more macro scale. It's something to be aware of.
Yep, good point. Jen, what would you tell somebody?
So I didn't know very much about the Clay That Woke before we started playing, and I was really disappointed that there's no lady Minotaurs, right? Like, it seems like a silly thing, and I realized that he probably did it purposefully, and there's a really good reason for it. But I didn't know, and not being able to play a character that I could identify with easily like that, it was a thing I had to step past. So.
Yep, that's a very good point. Something to know. Yeah, Mark.
I think the basic structure of the game is very different from most RPGs, in that in most RPGs the GM plays all the opposition in the world, and the PCs, especially if they're good PCs, start to like do their own thing, and the other characters kind of oppose them. And in this, it's actually like the opposite. I think the characters, the NPCs, are doing a lot of acting, and the Minotaurs are trying to think about whether they want to support or not support that action. And so it has a very different, very cool gameplay, but you need to know that like you're not going to step up here and like go kill dragons with your big Minotaur sword. You might eventually, but that's not where it's going to start.
Yep. All right, and now let's talk about why should you play. This is the one thing you would tell to somebody if you wanted to get them to play Clay That Woke. And I will start with Jen.
Okay, so I really love how rich like the world and setting are. Like he just dropped us in, and like I felt immersed in it, which I really liked. So.
Yeah, solid. Rich, what is the one reason you would tell somebody?
The game is built for long-term play, and a lot of story games aren't really. I'm actually on kind of a soul search to try to find a campaign game that's very story-oriented, and most of these games are really like mini-series, and I feel like this could get some deep play.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Paul specifically called that out too as we started that it's long-term. Yeah, good point. And Mark, what would you tell somebody?
It's super innovative. Like the tokens are really, really interesting, and the Oracle is really interesting, and I think it's just really something you should try. It's very, very cool.
It's just super cool. And yeah, I mean, I basically am echoing that it's super cool. I think probably one of the most interesting killer apps that I want to call out is Silence, and how that it's like it's a moral code, but very clearly you're supposed to explore it, you're supposed to examine it, you're supposed to like. Mm-hmm. Unveil. It's not a clear moral code. It's not distinct. There aren't absolute hard lines, and that seems super interesting. Not least because it's Paul made as we were playing, he made the recollection to like alignment in D&D and how you would sort of investigate that as you played. But in my recollection, a lot of that stuff didn't actually have an effect. It didn't necessarily matter where exactly you drew those lines, but it really does matter here. There's a strong mechanical effect. You will lose your silence depending upon where we figure out these lines are and where these actions fall with regard to our morality, and that was super interesting. Yeah, so that's it. The game again was The Clay That Woke by Paul Czege, and we'll have a link to purchase the game in the YouTube description. And if you like this video, subscribe by clicking the button, which is up there.
You're right.
Got it that time.
Yay!
Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.